All right.
Yeah, I
A
like
little energy, a little different intro.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't get popped this week and we can actually have our viewers comment. So we appreciate all of you that have been watching, and we apologize for some of the issues we've been facing. Facebook's been a pain in the ass. But all that said, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever the fuck you're watching this. This is the RosinBaggers podcast, episode 9, I believe. We are already to 9.
9.
Wow, feels like yesterday we started this podcast, but it's been fun, and time flies when you're having fun.
That's right.
Stove, how you doing, bud?
Doing good, bud. Doing good. Cubbies got a victory today, so
yeah.
lots of day baseball today. I like it,
dude. It was a heavy day.
Yeah, real heavy. Like 6-8 games.
I believe it was. I think it was 8. Actually, I think you're right. It was 8 games. I think during the day. A lot of day baseball.
Yeah.
So
very, very good. And we had a cycle today.
Yes.
We had a no last night. Which I know you will get to in your state of
the fucking timing, incredible. Timing almost never works out in my favor.
That's right.
It did last night.
Yep, for sure.
All right, well, let's get started here. Let's talk about week reviews here and look at week 5. Yep, there we go, week 5 review. So I had the Cardinals and the Giants, and you had the White Sox against
the Red Sox.
The Sox and
Sox.
What are your takeaways from the series between the two teams named after clothing?
So the Red Sox need to figure it out. I think they've lost like 11 of their last 14 games. They're on. Well, the White Sox are on a 6-game winning. We're on a 6-game winning streak after the series sweep here. Man, it's watching those games, and this was the first weekend for the early morning or late morning Sunday game that started on NBC, and watching that game especially, and Alex Cora said it perfectly. Our pitching has been there. It's been our key situational hitting with runners in scoring position, or just this or that, that they have not been getting the hits, those key hits in those timely situations. And what makes a great ball club? Pitching, relief pitching, obviously, and then those timely situational hits. And you haven't had that with the Red Sox. And we talked about this last week. When we previewed them, that this was a ball club that we were high up on to start off the season, but we could easily see them finishing 4th in their division.
Yeah.
And that's basically where they are right now. Their pitching has been there. Okay.
We talked about that last week, and it's interesting that Cora said that this week. He talked about we just haven't been able to score runs, and we talked about it. Like if told you, and I think they've given up like 89 runs
in ball games. So their pitching has kept them in the ball games, but it's just been their hitting, their timely hitting. They're not getting those hits. And we talked about Trevor Story. He's not hitting the ball. You have some injuries with some people. Coming off injuries, going back on. The IL and everything else like that. So I don't know. It's interesting, I guess, for that. On the flip side, with Chicago, Abreu, he's been killing the ball. He really has. And like an idiot again, I forgot my notes at the office. So I'm trying to go off of muscle memory when I was writing the notes here. But they got the timely hits. Pitching was decent for him. And here's the other thing too. I do remember this. Your pitcher for Chicago, I think, is Velasquez, or something like that. He had like a 13.5 ERA. And he goes like 6 innings, like 3 hits, you know. And it reminds me of going back to the Braves and Rangers series when I picked that series. And I was like, perfect opportunity for the Braves here to start their winning streak, get a series win here against the Rangers with their pitching fiasco and their combined team ERA. You have a guy up there that hasn't won a ball game and has a 13.5 ERA, and you score. I think they scored 1 run that ball game. So, man, I don't know what it is, but if something doesn't change, Red Sox might be looking for a new hitting coach by the All-Star break.
It's insane to look at that lineup too and think they're struggling the way they are. Yeah. And I want to flip it and be a little positive if I'm looking at it from the Red Sox perspective. As long as we can keep our pitching going like this, I have to believe that our hitting is going to get going, right? At some point. Now, I would have thought it would have happened by now. We're 30, I think they're 30 games into their season. I would have thought it would have happened by now. It hasn't, and that is concerning. But I also, if I'm going to be the eternal optimist as a Red Sox fan or as a member of that front office, I have to believe that we're gonna hit, right? Like, we've got studs up and down that lineup. We're gonna hit eventually. So keep the pitching going. Maybe it is a change with the hitting coach that needs to happen, a little different approach in terms of, what the hitters are seeing and hearing and feeling in terms of what changes they're going to make on a daily basis. But man, it is concerning because we are now about a fifth of the way into the season, and the Red Sox still can't score runs.
Yeah.
And their pitching has been good. I mean, they still are at the point they've given up 122 runs. That's like 6th, I think, or 7th best in the entire league. Yeah. So you should be winning more games.
Exactly.
It's insane to me that they're not winning more games with that lineup. So, yeah. All right. So I want to talk Cardinals Giants, right? And I highlighted here the power stash.
I was just gonna say the stash. Unfortunately, it's all on Cardinals, dude, too. But
yeah, for sure. But that is one hell of a stash. And I highlighted this for a reason because in a 3-2 ball game against one of the better offenses in the league, one of the better teams in the league, we had the Cardinals pitching showed up, right? But that's in game 2. So right, they win the first 2 games of this series. I want to highlight game 1. Sorry, I want to pull up the box score and I'm getting a little scatterbrained here, but
you're good.
So Mr. Miles Mikolas, goes 5 2/3, 1 earned run in a 7-1 ball game to lead off the series. And then the Cardinals go on to win game 2, 3-2. And you got to be feeling really good as a Cardinals fan, beating the Giants in the first 2 games of a 4-game series. And then they go and drop the second 2 games. I had to highlight the power stash, but I also want to look at this from the perspective. I talked about it last week a little bit. These are 2 teams that I think are going to be vying for playoff positions at the end of the year, right? I think we can all agree that these are 2 teams that should be there at the end of the season. And you look at it from the Cardinals' perspective, you had a chance to take a series win from a team like the Giants, who's competing for, the NL West title. They won the most games last year, best record, etc. And then you drop the next 2, and that's got to feel a little deflating. So I worry if I'm from the Cardinals' perspective, leading into the series, I think you would have thought split and we're okay, right? Because yeah, he is throwing again tonight, man. I worry if I'm a Cardinals fan because we won the first 2, then we dropped the next 2, and you had to feel like we should have won that series, right? And then you go into a game against Baltimore last night and you lose 5-3 against the Orioles. That's a disheartening loss. So I know that the Cardinals, and we talked about it last week, they're dealing with some COVID issues. They're dealing with a little bit of upheaval in that locker room with some of the restrictions and the players that are being impacted. But the Orioles are a team you probably should sweep, right? They're not a good baseball team. But on any given day, a baseball team can win. But I think couple that with the fact that you dropped the last two against the Cardinals, and it feels a little different, right? It feels like the wind was kind of taken out of your sails in the second half of that series, that 4-game series with the Giants. So I think that the Cardinals need to get a little bit of momentum going here through the rest of May to kind of push themselves back into this. This NL Central is going to be a very interesting division. We talked about at the beginning of the season, where this division would kind of pan out. You look at Milwaukee, they've gotten a little bit hot, and they don't have their bats going. Their pitching has not been super good, but they've been finding ways to win games. Yeah. Brandon Woodruff, I think, has given up, 14 runs on the road, and he's given up like 16 hits or 16 runs, and he didn't give up 14 runs until the end of July last year. He was nuts last year. He's been off. So if I'm looking at that, I think the Brewers have some room for improvement. So if I'm the Cardinals, I need to get things going here. If I'm the Giants, I worry because I dropped the first two in this series, and I scored 3 runs in those 2 games combined. But I feel good about coming back in that series and winning the last 2. I'm still at the crossroads that I was last week. I didn't learn anything from this series. It's one of those series I didn't learn anything about these 2 teams. I picked it because I thought we might learn a little something about one or the other team. I learned nothing because they split the series, and it was 2 games. It was basically a tale of 2 halves, essentially. So didn't really learn anything about the teams, unfortunately. So I don't have a big revelation here. The power stash was really what I wanted to highlight from this. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to give credit where credit is due. I agree with that. Yes, sir. Yeah.
He threw a hell of a game, and he's got a hell of a caterpillar around his upper lip. All right. Let's talk about this week's matchups here. So you're looking at Cubs, D-backs. I'm really curious to hear about this one because these are 2 teams that they're not at the top of the standings, right?
No shit.
But we get good baseball in these series, right? There's good baseball still to be played. What are you looking forward to in this one?
So going into looking at, and this was, I believe this was as of yesterday, okay? Mm-hmm. So as of yesterday, Cubs last 10 games. Records 2-8. Diamondbacks, on the other hand, 8-2. Cubs lost last night. Cubs win today. Okay, so in so facto, cancel each other out there. You're still, well below 500 in your 10 games. Okay. Ooh, Alex Cora is hot right now. I think he just got ejected. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened here, but just a second. Oh yeah. Yeah, called strike 3, way below the knees. Yeah, I'd be hot too. Man. Yeah.
Fucking strike zone.
Yeah, Angel Hernandez back there.
Of course. Of course. Hey, it wouldn't surprise me.
I know.
Not one bit.
So, Ty's going full mustache here. Oh yeah.
I'm all in on that, buddy.
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
We will do side by sides.
Yeah.
We will
vote. So getting back to the Cubs Diamondbacks, man, as I was looking at all the matchups this week, there wasn't one in my mind that I was looking at that really stood out to me. There wasn't a Dodgers Milwaukee matchup, so I went with my team, the Cubs. Okay. And it was more so fact that, these teams, they're really not where they want to be. And Cubs, as of late, have been obviously on a downhill slide. Diamondbacks, kind of an uphill slide here. And if you look at their previous matchups between each other, I think the Cubs are 7-3 against the Diamondbacks in their last 10 games. So they got that going for them. So with people going on the IL for the Cubs, this and that, the Cubs that, they're hitting, they're pitching right now. They're not all clicking. One game you might have some decent pitching and your bats, are bad. And then quite opposite the next, so they're not clicking like a team should right now. And so this series for me is kind of a middle of the road to bottom feeders. I don't want to call them bottom feeders, but that's what this series is for me. And if depending on, you could look at it as Diamondbacks, if they get the series win over the Cubs, you should. Okay. You should. You have a better record than they do right now. If the Cubs get the series win over the Diamondbacks, then maybe that might propel them, to, have some more confidence in themselves. You had Frank Schwindel, who was tearing it up last year, second half of the season, hasn't done shit for the Cubs this year. The Cubs sent him down on Sunday and literally, I don't even know if he left Chicago, called him back. He didn't even, I don't even think he left the city. He was
still in the TSA line getting his bags checked.
Yeah. So, I know they're playing some younger guys. Horner, he's got to stay healthy. He got injured today by running into the fucking umpire. That's one of those guys that has had a history of injury and has not been stable, on the playing field. And so I think, the only bright spot so far for the Cubs has been Contreras, who as of late has been hitting lights out, and Seiya.
Yeah. Seiya's been a fucking revelation, buddy.
Yeah. So it's one of these series for me. It's early on in the season, but it's one of those series for the Cubs that they need to kind of turn it on right now. You get too many losses early on. It's hard to get those wins later on down the season, to where, like you said last week, oh shit, we gotta win 20 out of our next 29 games, to get a wild card spot or something. It's this, to me, for the Cubs, is one of those series. I said this before, I don't see the Cubs being anywhere close the top of the division this year. It's all Brewers and Cardinals. But it's one that if they do win, they could get some of that momentum. Those guys get some confidence going in them, start seeing the ball, hitting the ball better. And then once that happens, then those cylinders start clicking, for the team. And that's when you start reeling off those victories in a row. So that's where I am with this series.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to highlight the Jays versus the Rays. And this is sort of for similar reasons, right? These are two teams we've talked about as playoff teams, right? So a little bit different kind of scenario than the D-backs and the Cubs. The Cubs are in rebuild, and if they can be competitive, that's going to be a win. The Jays and the Rays are two teams we expect to be in the playoff chase and potentially World Series bound, right? They have aspirations to go win a title. And the Rays right now they're above 500 in their last 10. They're 6-4, right? Anytime you're above 500 over the span of 10 games, you're playing all right baseball. But the Jays on the other hand, are 3-7 in their last 10. So they are on the slide while the Rays are starting to pick things up and play some good baseball here. And the Jays have lost games to Cleveland. They've been beat up by the Yankees. over their last 10. They got swept over their 2-game series on Tuesday, Wednesday of this week by the Yankees. They lost 2 of 3 against the Yankees last week, lost 2 of 3. There was one game that got postponed. It was supposed to be a 4-game series, moved to Saturday. They lost 3 of 4. They played a doubleheader on Saturday, split that, but lost the other 2 games of the series. So they are hurting right now in terms of where the Jays are, and it's very surprising. They're not scoring runs. They're not getting guys on base and moving the ball around the field. So this is
my World Series pick.
Yeah, man. Like we were all pretty bullish on the Jays, pretty bullish on the Rays as well. But right now, the Jays are scuffling offensively. It's very surprising. Their pitching is okay. It's not great right now, but we expected them to be able to score runs and just bludgeon teams with that lineup, that murderer's row lineup. So I look at this series over the weekend as an opportunity for the Jays to either realize that they've got to retool, right, and figure out what's going on with this lineup, or if they can beat up on the Rays, who bring a lot of good arms to the table, get things right. This could be a get-right series for the Jays, or it could be kind of an awakening series for the Jays here. The Rays, I expect them to be competitive, and they're playing a 3-game series over the weekend. But, at some point, the Jays got to wake these bats up and start scoring runs, because they played that 3-game series against the Yankees last week and scored 5 total runs in that series. Lost
with that lineup,
Yeah, they lost 3-2, lost 9-1, and then they won the last game of the series 2-1. Just not good for a lineup that features a lot of studs, features potentially an MVP, but also goes very deep, right? 1 through 9, they are solid in that lineup, and they've got to figure out a way to score some runs here. So I look at this series, good matchup, pitching versus hitting. The Rays obviously can hit the ball as well, but the arms that they bring to the table, I want to see if the Jays can kind of pick themselves up off the mat here, get the bats going, start scoring some runs.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So let's go salute to service, and then we'll go State of the Union. All right, this week's episode goes out to Army Sergeant First Class Javier Gutierrez. Gutierrez was 28 at the time of his passing, lived in hailed from Jacksonville, North Carolina. He died February 8th, 2020. This one's especially painful. Died in an apparent insider attack, Nangarhar province in Afghanistan. He was over there working, training, for interdiction forces and working with the Afghani forces, and it looks like there was some foul play internally. So Army Sergeant First Class Gutierrez was posthumously promoted to his rank, and he was awarded Bronze Star medals and Purple Hearts. Him and his fellow soldier that fell during this attack. So this episode goes out to Army Sergeant First Class Javier Gutierrez. Till Valhalla, we have the watch. All right. Let's get to our State of the Union. So I always fucking do that. I hit the overlays instead of the goddamn videos. You got my back.
I got you, bro. But I think we need to revisit the State of the Union music.
Yeah.
Get a little bit more upbeat.
A little more upbeat. Yeah, I like it. I like that. Maybe some pomp and circumstance. Bom, bom, bom. All right, talk to me, buddy. Talk to me about the Cubs. I'm going to save my pick for last because timing is fucking everything.
Perfect on your part there, bud. It goes back to my matchup here. The Cubs have been abysmal this year. Like I said, their last 10 games they were 2-8. They and that was before yesterday's game. They lost yesterday. They won today, so they're 3-12. Okay, 3-12 there. I'm sorry, 3-11. Still, Hendricks hasn't looked like himself. He hasn't been the professor. He did pitch a nice game over the weekend. And like I said, your only bright spot so far has been Contreras and Ceja. Those are your two bright spots. Wisdom hasn't been producing. Schwindel hasn't been producing. Ian Happ actually has been seeing the ball better. His on-base percentage has been good. So he's carrying what he did the second part of last season into this first half. Obviously, J-Hay, totally overpaid on him. You're still with it. Out of all the guys, you trade everyone, but you don't trade J-Hay. And it's just that contract, and you're basically stuck with it. But what he lacks in offensive performance, he does bring that defensive Gold Glove to the table to where he still is a pretty decent WAR player.
Nice if he could fucking hit the ball again, though.
No kidding.
Jesus.
Yeah, when he first came up with the Braves, that would be nice.
Yeah.
But no, it's just Cubs bullpen hasn't been good at all, and so we talk about these teams, the A's, the Orioles, the Reds, that have been just stinking it up, or ownership just not giving a fuck. I know the Ricketts. I know they care. Okay, it may not seem like it with what they did at the trade deadline last year, and with what they didn't do in the offseason this year.
I think they look back on, like, was it 20? I think it started in 2009, maybe as late as 2010, when they had the Theo Epstein rebuild. We got to build organically. We got to have the farm system.
Yeah.
I think they look at this as another opportunity for that, right? And the Ceja signing was huge.
Yeah.
Let's get some draft picks. Let's get some compensatory picks. Let's get some guys in here, trade away some of these studs for some farm. They did rebuild the farm system a bit.
They did, and I'm glad you brought that up, because their arms in the farm system are good arms right now. Right. They have been doing good. But yeah, it's just, for me as a Cubs fan, I hate to put them as State of the Union for this reason. Obviously you want to put them for, something.
Yeah, because we're winning.
Yeah. But no, it's one of those times where you need to shit or get off the pot. You need to figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. And, as fans, I think we understand what rebuild means, right?
Yeah.
I just think it's hard to swallow what rebuild means. And I look at the Nats, and we won the World Series, and obviously we're in rebuild mode right now. We weren't able to sustain. Strasburg can't ever fucking stay healthy, and the injuries in the lineup in 2020 and 2021 kind of hurt any of the success that the Nats thought they were going to be able to sustain coming off that World Series. But it fucking hurts to rebuild, man. It hurts to be 10. What are they, 10-21 right now? Is the Nats? So and the Cubbies at 11-19, right? So we're both sharing in the fucking misery of a rebuild. I understand. I fully understand what a rebuild means. It means we're gonna suck for 2, 3, 4 years, and then we're gonna rebuild the farm system, and it fucking hurts, man. It as a fan, it's like, yeah, we got to rebuild. Let's get some talent in here, but I want that talent to be there now, right? It's hard. It's hard to watch a team that, the Nats might win fucking 60 games and the Cubs might win 70, and it's going to be hard to watch that. So I'm with you. I feel it, man. It hurts to my core for sure.
Yeah.
All right. My State of the Union. I'm going to disclose this now. I picked this.
You did pick this before. You did.
Before Reed Detmers went and threw a fucking no-no last night. Hats off, buddy. That young buck in his 11th start in his career was fucking dealing. And he's a guy that they've been very bullish on in their farm system, right? They've had Joe Adell and they've had Reed Detmers have been kind of the two big guys that they've said these could be the future of what's going to make us a good team, right? Pair him with Trout, pair him with Shohei, pair him with all the guys up and down, Tony Two Bags. And we've got to be able to start putting some talent on the field that's deeper than these big money guys because we spent all this money on these other guys. We need some of these young guys to come up. And Reed Detmers made good on that last night.
Yeah.
Now to talk State of the Union, because on top of that no that they got last night, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, or whatever they've decided to call themselves this year, and Ty was very bullish on the Angels, so I'm going to give him credit at the beginning of the season. And you were very, very bullish on Shohei Ohtani. I was very bullish on the Rangers, and they sit at a fucking smoldering 12-16.
Yep.
So the Angels right now are 21-11, and they look like they've got the formula to actually sustain some success and maybe get Mike Trout into the playoffs with a chance to win a fucking series, because he's been the best player in the league for a long time. We've talked about how just ridiculous he is for 10 years now. 9, I think he's been in the league for, this being his 10th, I think, full season in the pros. And he's been like the apex predator for so fucking long, but he just can't get into the playoffs. He can't win a series in the playoffs. I think he's played 5 career games or 7 career games in the playoffs. He's been swept out of the league. It's not good. It's not good. Yeah. This Angels team looks like they've got depth in the lineup. It looks like they've got depth in the rotation, and they've got a pretty good bullpen. That was the part.
That's exactly.
That was the part we talked about that might be a problem for them. It's been good. And if that bullpen stays good over 162 games, and I know we're only about a fifth of the way into the season, but if that bullpen stays good the rest of the way, I do believe that the Angels are going to have the pitching to go with the hitting in that lineup. And of course, health is always the X factor, but this looks like a team that could do some damage in the AL. And I don't know if they're 100% going into the playoffs. I don't know what team wants to face this lineup and this rotation. I don't know what team wants to face Shohei Ohtani, Reed Detmers if he keeps it going. I don't know who wants to pitch to him, right? As deep as that lineup is, if Adele can get it going and be an asset in that lineup. But they're raking, they're pitching, the bullpen looks good, and at the deadline, they could be buyers and add some depth to that, especially to that bullpen, maybe even a guy at the bottom of the rotation or somewhere in the middle of that rotation. I'm in. I'm with you guys. I'm bullish on the Angels. And if you're an Angels fan, you should be flying the red high and proud right now, because that team is playing really good baseball and it looks sustainable. It's not just, they're not getting lucky winning games. They're pitching well, hitting well. It looks sustainable.
Yeah, and they're fun to watch right now too. And I was watching. You were probably watching the game last night.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching the game last night and seeing him pitch in the 9th inning at over 100 pitches, and he was still dealing.
He was still bringing it
low 90. I think 93, 94
from the left side though, buddy. That's the 7.
Yeah. He had his curveball moving too.
Yep.
So yeah, it was fun to watch, and we mentioned it at the beginning of the season. They're pitching. They need the pitching. They need the pitching depth, because that's what they've been lacking these last few years. You have the offensive power, you just lack the pitching. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's awesome to see. The Angels have a collective team here right now, and are playing good baseball.
Yeah, if I said the name Taylor Ward to you, also, he's a guy I want to highlight just a little bit. If I said the name Taylor Ward to you before the season started, I guarantee you, exactly. Most even avid baseball fans would have been, who? But all he's done this year is bat .373, 7 bombs. That's a dude that can play. And then
hold up.
Yep.
I think it's 8 bombs now. I I think he just hit one
That's
literally
incredible.
like 5 minutes ago.
Look at this fucking timing. Good Lord. Good Lord. Sometimes
and
you just get lucky.
And Otani's up right now.
Yeah, you gotta follow him up with fucking Otani.
Well, and someone posted the other day, I think it was a 3-0 count, bases loaded, and Mike Trout was up, and then Otani was on deck. Like, that was the pitcher's worst nightmare.
I saw that meme. It's so good. The pitcher's worst nightmare. Who wants to face that, man? That's insane. Trout is doing his thing. He's got 9 bombs. Otani's got 6. Jared Walsh, another guy that's kind of not necessarily a name you would have picked out to start the season, but he's got 6 bombs, 23 ribbies to lead the team. Rendon seems like he's sort of figuring it out. He's not hitting with the consistency and average
right now,
but he's actually having better at bats than he's had, especially since he went to LA. He's had a lot of injuries and nicked up there, but man, if Tony Two Bags can get back to what he was in Washington, that lineup becomes completely fucking menacing. Because there were times when he was in Washington, he was the best hitter the best pure hitter in baseball, and he's not been that in LA. If they can get him back to even close to what he was in Washington, that lineup is a fucking nightmare.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, let's get to fair or foul. All right. First fair or foul topic here. The Reds' hot streak proves that they won't set the record for losses in a season. What do you think, buddy? They still going to lose the most?
Yeah, that's foul. That's foul, bud.
You mean winning a bunch of games against the Pirates doesn't mean you're a good team?
Nah, not at all. Now, hey, they did put up some runs today against the Brewers. I think they won, 14-12, 14-11, something like that.
Crazy.
But no, this is foul. They're still going to set the record.
Yeah, this is as foul as ownership. I do think that this team has the potential to lose like 19 of 20 at points in the season. Oh, yeah. So I think winning 3 out of 4 is probably not going to stay. And I think now it's like 4 out of 6 or something with today's win. So yeah, I think that's not going to save you from setting the record, going down in history as an infamous ball club.
Yeah.
All right. Fair or foul? The MLB expanding to play international games in non-baseball hotbeds like Europe is good for the game. And I want to expand a little bit before I pass it your way. So what we mean by non-baseball hotbeds, we're talking not Japan, because we see baseball games in Japan all the time. Opening the season, there's been, prior to the official opening day, we've seen teams like the Athletics and the Mariners go over and play in Japan, right? Mexico, another baseball hotbed, right? DR, Puerto Rico, right? If baseball were to start playing games in some of those stadiums, those are baseball hotbeds. Mm-hmm. Europe, you show a average person a baseball bat in Europe, they couldn't fucking tell you what it's for other than bludgeoning people on the street before a soccer game, right? Yep. Or a football game, as they would call it. So non-baseball hotbeds, things like Europe, maybe, if we eventually get to other continents, Asia, Africa, not necessarily Japan, etc., right? So we're talking expanding the game because we've seen it from the NFL. Does MLB have the power and the pull to do this? Is this good for the game, Stowe? Fair or foul?
You took the one.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. But no, they are taking a page out of the NFL playbook here. And what do you get when the NFL plays games overseas? Obviously, you are losing a home game. Mm-hmm. Okay. But you're getting that product all day long then. You start off early in the morning, the 9 a.m., and then
we talked about that Sunday where they had the 11 o'clock slot, right? Now you're talking about 9 in the morning, and potentially
11.
multiple slots you can work with, because
3,
Europe's 5, 6, 7, 8 hours ahead.
Yeah. I think so. I think it will be good for the game of baseball. I don't think it will be as lucrative as the NFL being over there, if that makes sense. But I do think it's good for the game of baseball to be over there. I don't see it being as lucrative as the NFL.
Yeah, I think what makes it valuable with the NFL is sort of what you talked about, right? You mentioned it briefly that you're losing a home game in the NFL. You only have 17. Well, they expanded to 17, right? It used to be 16, but you only have 17 games, and you only have either 8 or 9 home games, right, throughout the course of a season. So losing one of those is a big deal. But on the reverse side, football has been able to put together a product that resonates with the fan bases in the places they play, right? London, you see the games and you see these guys and gals at the games wearing jerseys, right? But thinking back to when they first started, it wasn't this, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't as big as it is now. So I think it has the potential to become a lucrative proposition. Sure. The other thing that I like about it with baseball is that you don't just play 16 home series in a season. You play, I think it's like 29 or 30 home series over there. It might even be more than that. It's like 33 or something home series. It's much more than football. So you're not losing the percentage that you're losing, right, with football. So I think baseball teams should be receptive to this, but I also think it's good for the game, because if you can get there, there are small pockets of hotbeds for baseball over in Europe, right? The Netherlands, especially, right, with both Curacao, which is a former Netherlands colony, right? But the Netherlands usually puts a good product on the field. Germany sometimes do, and a lot of those are, military kids that are playing. But there is pockets there that I think the Major League Baseball could leverage and start to build a little bit of a following. And if they keep with it, because I know it's 3 years on the docket, right? 24, 25, 26. They've got to keep with it, though, because the NFL did not have this level of success that we see now. They didn't pack stadiums with jerseys and the fervor that comes with it, and Tom Brady being the big persona over there, right? So stick with it. That's my big thing.
And so you kind of mentioned it. I think you mentioned it, but I'm going to reiterate this. For the NFL going over there, look at the teams that have gone over there. Yeah. They've been shitty teams going over there for the majority of the
this year, really. Now they've got some good teams going overseas.
Exactly. So I think if baseball can learn,
that's a big thing
off that. And
send the Yankees over.
I would
send the Yankees over to England.
I was just going to say the Yankees Red Sox series over there, but you need to send some high profile teams over there to get it going, get the ball rolling over there, build that momentum over there, and then you can kind of mix in some middle tier teams, some lower tier teams, but you got to keep that momentum going with some of those higher profile clubs.
Yeah, I think there's a lesson. Definitely. That's a great point. There is a lesson to be learned from what the NFL has done. If we're going to send teams over there, let's not send the A's and the Orioles, right?
Yes.
Let's send the Sox and the Yankees. Let's send, other rivalries.
No. Send them. There's going to be more fans over there.
That's true. Actually, they will have more fans in the stadium.
They would spell that shit out, and it would surpass whatever they have right now for a 10.
Yeah, that's so true. Good point. I didn't even think about it that way. They would have more fans in the stands, but you got to send them across the pond to get fans in the stands for an athletics game. But yeah, that's a great point, right? Baseball should be taking notes. What has the NFL done? What are some of the complaints? Because believe me, they can see on social media when people are bitching about the Jaguars playing the Bengals pre-Joe Burrow in London, right? And the Dolphins fucking playing, some other shitty team. So Washington playing New England over there, right? When Washington was fucking an afterthought. So with you, 100%. I think that's a great point. Learn from what the NFL has done. Put those good teams. Get some premier names over there.
Big names, yes.
Yeah, send Trout and Ohtani, right? Send the Angels over because I know Mike Trout. He's popular overseas as well. So that's the reason Seiya wears 27, right?
That would be a good series to start. Yankees, Angels.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got Judge, you got Stanton, you got Trout, you got Shohei.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not a bad one either, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Send those big names over. Let's get this product in front of people overseas for sure.
Yeah.
All right. That's our last topic for Fair or Foul, and that brings us to closing statements here. Stove, what you got for me, bud?
My Cubbies won today.
Yeah.
So, feeling good. Got to win a few more. You know what that's called? Winning streak.
Streak. We're going streaking.
No, you're starting to see the better teams kind of separate themselves from the rest of the pack right now. And so you see the Brewers, the Cardinals, Dodgers, Yankees, like some of those you mentioned, Angels now. They're right up there with them. That are 20, 21 game winners right now, and 10, 11, 9, 8 games lost. So you're starting to see those teams kind of separate them. So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep that up and what teams, kind of stay close behind them as well, kind of on their heels and just get ready to pounce like a cat.
Love it. Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of that, man. We're starting to get close to when we can start to look at, right? We've talked standings. We've talked what teams are doing to start the season. But we're starting to get close to the point where these games are going to start really meaning something, right? These series, these matchups. And we're going to start to see a lot of interdivision matchups between teams that are sitting at the top of the standings. And they're going to start really meaning something as we get into June and July, right? Looking at some teams that are sitting in second and third place, as you said, pouncing, right? I look at a team like the Braves. I look at a team like the Rays and the Jays, right? And I look at a team like the Mariners. The Mariners were in first place like a week ago, and they've fallen off the map and whatnot. But you look at these teams, and they've got teams at the top of their division that are streaking a little bit, right? Now's the time where you want to start to figure things out, start winning games so that you don't let them get too far away. Because I think you look at teams like the Mets and the Angels, we just talked about how sustainable they look. The Mets look very sustainable. They're pitching really well. They're scoring runs. Max is much more reliable as an ace than Jacob deGrom because deGrom's always hurt, right? The best ability is availability. This is the time of the season as we approach the end of May into June that teams need to start thinking about, okay, I've got to figure out what's going on here because I've got a team ahead of me, in the case of like the Braves, right? They're 3 games back of or 3 games back of the wild card, but they're 7 games back of the Mets. The Mets start to get 10, 12, 13 games away. Then it becomes, as you mentioned earlier, you got to win 20 out of 29 to even have a chance to get into the playoffs. So this is when we start to see these teams start to separate from the pack, the teams that are going to be in the playoff chase at the end of the season. now's that time where I think the games are going to start to mean something, and we're going to start to think about the implications of these series at the end of the season, as opposed to, hey, we're at the start of the season. What's this mean as we start to get underway here? These series and these games are much more important as we approach the midway point, when teams are going to start disappearing and not be able to catch up.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, that brings us to the end of our show tonight. Yeah, my dad mentioned in the comments. I don't know what's going on with Facebook tonight, man.
I don't know either.
Say it's a dispute. It says there's an issue streaming to Facebook. I'm not sure what happened. We'll have to look into it. Dad, appreciate you being persistent. I don't know what's going on with Facebook, but this has been a pain getting Facebook off of our fucking backs. Ty, appreciate you joining us via YouTube, man. I know you had some troubles with Facebook as well. Really appreciate everybody who's been persistent and sticking with us. We're gonna get these problems fucking ironed out, and we're gonna have this show streaming regularly across Facebook. Whatever we've got to do to get Facebook off our fucking backs.
Yep.
Anyway, to bring this to a close, appreciate everybody in the comments. Stove, I appreciate you. Thanks for joining me tonight. Ty, we'll see you next week, buddy. Missed you tonight, but bring that heat next week.
Bring that stash.
This has been the RosinBaggers podcast. We are out.